All right, well, friends, here's to you, heart center, and then namaste. We humbly bow before you tonight. I hope you guys are blessed. I hope that all that Source has for us is starting to manifest in synchronicities and love and kindness and goodness. And guess what? It won't always look like that. It's not about it manifesting, it's about you manifesting it. And so we are so blessed, it ain't even funny. I'm so thankful today that Source loves me and he keeps encouraging and strengthening and letting me know that it's okay. Just keep walking, keep learning, keep doing what you're doing. And I'm going to trust him. So, wow, what an amazing, some amazing truths that came out of the book of Philip, and I absolutely hope you were blessed by it. They should all be blessings for us. The words are not words to condemn us; they're to remove the sickness of ignorance. And so, we're going to pick up in chapter 18 tonight. In the book Jesus and the Essenes by Dolores Cannon. And guys, I gotta tell you, I was stoked when I read it again. We're gonna start getting into some pieces, as you saw last week. This has really been really massive for me, and I know it is for you too. So if I say that, it's not spiritual pride that it's only mine. It's huge for all of us. What I'm saying is that I accept and acknowledge that it's massive for me. Each person has to do that. Some don't, and that's okay too, but that's not where I want to walk. And so, all of these things that are bringing pieces, whether it be we're reading the Gnostics, or whether it be that we're reading a channeled book from the past, you're going to be quite amazed tonight. Keep your eye and your mind very attentive to the little things that are said that are contradictory to Christianity. Sometimes it's not always in the huge, great words that the life is changed. Sometimes it's in the little simple things that open the door for your mind to go, wow, that really is exactly what has been being shown. And so we're going to go to chapter 18 tonight. We saw last week he began to talk. I don't know if you guys remember him talking. Here's a thing that none of us really possess. Maybe you still struggle with this reincarnation thing. Maybe you don't even believe that people are reincarnated. It's okay if you don't. I think you'll be quite surprised when you find out that we've all been here many times. That we've all been here, and all of us have been both sexes, both female and male. And if I got into my dialogue with you about masculine and feminine, I would probably offend some people. In the spirit realm. I'm trying to learn more and more how to walk in the spirit realm every day. And if you do that, as you begin to do that, you then begin to recognize that you're dealing with a lot of people that have no concept of what the true spirit realm is really about. But there was a plan, there was a path, there was things that were done. And we were told things that we believed were, if you would, the gospel truth. And unfortunately, it's becoming more and more clear, maybe not for you, I don't know. But I do know for me, every day, Source brings something that helps me, even if it's just a small little thing, helps me gain greater clarity about the truth. And of course, you know, it's the truth that sets you free from the evil bondage of ignorance. And so I think you're in for a great treat if you're interested in learning what might have really existed before the lie that you lived in called Christianity. And so Dolores writes, there has been much discussion and controversy about the Star of Bethlehem. Many think that it never existed, that it is merely a myth or a legend. Others think it may have been an extremely rare conjunction of stars or planets. A conjunction occurs when two or more planets happen to cross paths in the sky, and they appear from our vantage point on Earth to have merged into one great star. This has occurred many times throughout history, but rarely of the magnitude described in the Bible. According to Warner Keller in his book, The Bible is History, many experts place the occurrence in 7 BC. And so if you get into, we could get into many rabbit holes off of this as to when it is that Herod died, when it is the thing that went on, that may not, let's say they bent time to get the narrative of the Bible the way they wanted it. And so when a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter was observed in the constellation of Pisces, Chinese records also refer to a bright nova, a sudden burst of light from a distant exploding star that may take millions of years to reach us, being seen in 6 BC. There are also old records of bright comets appearing about the time in the Mediterranean area. Halley's Comet, for example, visited in 12 BC. Many explanations have been presented, even that the star was really an alien spaceship. It is a known fact that Jesus was not born in 1 AD, okay? At the beginning of our Christian calendar, because of many inaccuracies in the early dating systems and the conversions that have taken place in between there. The only thing about this controversy is that no one is certain about what the Star of Bethlehem was or when it occurred. And so she says, I was certainly not thinking about any of this, and it was the last thing that I expected to come forth while working with Katie. This episode occurred during our first session when we had just encountered Saudi, and I was trying to find out more about who he was. I feel extremely honored that we were allowed to participate in such a glorious event. I had merely asked him to move forward to an important day in his life, and if any of you have done past life regressions, I have some here that are nodding their head. That's exactly how you go through time. And I'd merely asked him to move forward to an important day in his life. This is a routine command to keep the subject from bogging down in the boring, mundane things that compose everyone's life. Moving them to an important day is a way of moving the story of their life forward. What is important to one person is not necessarily important to another, and this adds to the validity of the account. This was the last thing that I expected when I asked him to move to a day that he had considered important, counted him there, and asked him what he was doing. He said he was with his father and they were watching the stars. Not an unusual thing to be doing, but there was something different about her, Katie's voice. A quiet excitement, a feeling of wonder and awe that alerted me to the fact that this was not a normal night. He took several deep breaths and said, "It is the beginning of everything. To be able to see this for myself, it is all that I could ask, to know that the prophecy is being fulfilled. Katie, as Saudi clasped her hands together in front of her body, and her body seemed alive with excitement. Saudi continued, "It is the coming together of the four tonight." See chapter 3, Saudi's father had told him that there would be a sign in the heavens when the Messiah was coming. It is said that from four corners that stars will rise together, and when that they meet, it will be the time of his birth. So now for all of you who never knew exactly what went on, now the picture begins to be formed from us, from somebody who you will see who is watching this go on. What an amazing concept. They can prove these things, and I'm quite sure did through research of ancient history. And so it is said from the four corners that stars will rise together, and when that they meet, it will be the time of his birth. There were many of the Essenes with Saudi, and they were tracking from the waiting point of the hills, which was probably above Qumran. If you know Qumran, Qumran is at the bottom of a hill, and that's where they planted all the clay jars where they got the Dead Sea Scrolls from, which is the hilltop on which these people were sitting, not 100 yards probably, I'm guessing, on top of the hill from the city of Qumran, which is just some 6 miles, 12 miles from Jerusalem. And so, which was probably above Qumran, he could hardly contain his excitement. Never in my wildest hopes. His voice contained so much awe, it was also a whisper. And I asked him to describe what he was seeing. This is what Saudi says. He said, "It is like the heavens themselves have opened up, and all of the light is just shining down upon us. It is like the sun of the day. It is so bright. They come together. They have not met so that it is larger than it will be." He formed a large ring with his thumbs and forefingers, touching to show how the stars appeared as they moved in to merge. It was clear that he was seeing something very unusual. His excitement was contagious, and his voice gave me goosebumps. This was only one of the many times I wished I could see what he was seeing. But we would have to settle for the second best of Saudi's eyewitness description. It seemed there were four stars coming in together to one point. And it is said that it becomes as one in that moment he will take his first breath. Dolores asked him, "Do you know where he will be born?" And Saudi responds, "He is in Bethlehem. It is of the prophecies." And so Dolores, "How are the other people with you reacting?" And he said, "They are all joyous. Everyone is besides themselves. They are filled with joy and the energy that is coursing around us. It is as if the whole world holds its breath in expectation." Supernatural increase in energy. Amazing. His voice was vibrating with emotion. There was no doubt in my mind that he was witnessing something extremely out of the ordinary. And so Dolores asked him, "What do you plan to do? Are you going to try to find the Messiah?" I assumed anyone at the time would have knowledge of what this strange astral phenomena meant, would naturally want to go and see him. It would really be a breakthrough to get that story. I didn't know at the time that there would be plenty of time later to learn of the Messiah. And so Saudi says, "We shall not. It shall be for them to come." And so Dolores says, "Do the prophecies say who will find him?" And Saudi responds, "It is said that he shall be found by others, and then they shall leave." And so Dolores says, you're not going to go to Bethlehem and see if you can find him? Saudi responds, no, for there will be dark years which shall come soon. Then he shall come to us, and we shall be prepared for him. This has been prophesied that he will come to your people. Saudi says, yes, it is known. Will he learn from your people? And Saudi says, no, not so much that he will learn from us. This next statement just blows me away. As to be awakened to what is inside. Wow. I've been telling you guys that once I found the code, it's easy for me to understand and see Yeshua's mission on earth was not at all what you were taught it is. Very, very easy to see that. And you have the ability to help awaken this? He says, we can but try. Talking about us, people. This was the first indication that Saudi might be able to give us first-hand knowledge about Jesus. I fully realized the importance of this, and I intended to follow it wherever it led. She was taking big, deep breaths as Saudi watched the stars move closer together, and I asked if he knew what time of the year it was. And Saudi responds, it is the beginning of the year. The new year has just passed. Now, many of you understand that many of the Jewish things that they do today were never done in the ancient past. Those are new concoctions. Okay, Rosh Hashanah was a way for modern Judaism to displace the festivals that they don't keep. Like, while they keep Passover, it doesn't have the relevance that it was intended. And so it is interesting to conjecture here that he may be referring to Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, the Rosh Shofar, as he called it, in the beginning of the Jewish New Year, which now occurs in the fall. The experts say there were 3 conjunctions of Saturn and Jupiter during 7 BC, so we're a full 7 years before he's supposed to be alive. And taking many other variables into consideration, they think the star may have been the conjunction that occurred on October the 3rd, which would have been shortly after the beginning of their new year. Of course, when I asked these questions, I had no idea their year was any different from ours, and I asked if it was during the season we call spring, and he answered, the season of growth, this coming. Yes. So when I tell you, if you desire to keep lying to your grandchildren and your children, that's a very true statement. I would have changed that even if I was still in Christianity, and did to a large extent. And so she asked, what year of Herod is this now? He says, it is the 27th, I believe. I'm sure that says, I don't, would be Saudi style to say, but I don't know for sure. So the 27th of the year of King Herod, my friend, puts us with an exact date of the time that Yeshua was born historically, and it's not 1 AD. So he seemed to wish we would stop talking and go away and leave him alone. He was so involved with what he was watching that he seemed perturbed by my questions. He showed his impatience. You don't see it. It's so beautiful. There was so much emotion in those words. He seemed surprised that we couldn't see it also. And so Dolores asked him, are you going to do anything in particular whenever the stars all meet? Sadi says, we will watch and give homage to him, for he is our king. Not the king of the world, the king of the Jews. This could have taken quite a while, for the stars were obviously slow moving. So I decided to speed things up by moving him ahead to when the stars had all come together, and then I asked him what he was doing. And Sadi says, we give praise to Yahweh for his granting us that we are here. And we know that it is the great Yah. Honor, for we have lived in the time of the fulfillment of all prophecies. So here's a piece that I wanted to throw into you guys. If you listen very carefully to what he said, the prophecy of the coming of Messiah ended all Jewish prophecies. It was after that supposed to be that he was. The problem was we understand prophecy, unfortunately, very, very, very corrupt. Because if you are speaking of a spirit God, then when you hear prophecies that come from God, you are hearing of a spirit message that came from source. If you can allow yourself to still believe that it was about the physical man Jesus and all of the other lying Christian context that has been slathered over the true history, then it will be quite difficult for you to come to truth. He didn't come to save the world. He didn't come for them to eat his body and his blood literally. He came to hang his dirty clothes on a wood stake so that you could see the way to ascension for yourself. That is the metaphor. And so his hands were clasped. I'm sorry if I did not finish. He says, so we know that it is the great Yah. That's not unfortunate or unfamiliar for many of us. Now, there has been a couple of statements made about the names. And I'm beginning myself personally to see that all of these names all around the earth all come out of the same beginning knowledge. It doesn't really matter what God you call him. To somebody who is a Muslim, Allah is God, the creator source. To somebody that is a New Ager, his name might be Source, or his name might be All. To somebody, their picture, we know that the pantheon of the Canaanites, friends, were just human pictures of the gods that they served. There was nothing literal about them any more than Zeus is real. And all of them are a reworking of the ones that came before them. And then they rewrite them again. And then Rome rewrites them again. And then they get rewritten again. And they're all talking about the same basic structure. So if you call him, it really is a very moot subject. Whatever is comfortable for you and the intent that is inside of your heart and mind to call your creator that name, he will know you by. Whether that be Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yah, God, Father, Source, All, Allah, Hare Krishna, none of it makes any difference. We're all talking about the creator. How about, for me, it's just easy to call him Source, and to call him Father. He's the source of everything, and he is all humanity's Father. That seems like to me an honorable thing to call him. But none of them are a right and wrong subject. And I know we were very, very tied up in that how dare we desecrate God by calling him the wrong name. It's just an image that we make in our mind of the God that we're serving. It's an image, friends. There is no Yah that exists in that manner. And so his hands were clasped, and the foregoing seemed like a prayer. And I asked for another description of the stars now that they had all four come together. And he says, there is a beam. I did it again, didn't I? We are letting him know, I'm going to go back to Saudi. We are letting him know that we are striving to do our best to be prepared. For this is a great honor that is being bestowed upon us. And though we know we are unworthy, we hope to rise to the honor. And I think every one of us are still living in that state. Though we are unworthy of the purity and the blessing and the kindness and the love that Source shows to us, those who are enlightening, you will notice that you find enlightening and elevation are kind of like the names of God. They're the same thing. One who is enlightened has risen. He's elevated. Either way, when you say it, you're saying the same thing. It's just a different image of what you're trying to say. And so he says, we hope to rise to the honor. What an amazing concept. I hope to rise to the honor that's been exposed and is being exposed to us. Because, dear friend, Saudi and them's honor that was bestowed on them might in some ways have been greater than ours. I don't know inevitably how it will work out. But I have to tell you, it's quite an honor to be drug out of the lie of ignorance and begin to be hand-fed the truth. What it has always been about. And so his hands were clasped, and the foregoing seemed like a prayer. I'm going to show you another principle that I shared with you a week or two ago. And the foregoing seemed like a prayer. And I asked for another description of the stars now that they had all come together. And Saudi responds, he says, there is a beam. It is like a tail. It comes down with all of the light. It is like a focus that drops straight from the star, and it is said that in this light shall he be born, or was the word bore, and either one mean born. But I want to show you something here, and I think Dolores probably thought this because I do know I've heard scholars say this before. After you have just heard what I read to you, would it be so far-fetched for you to believe that there were 4 flying ships that came together, and when they came together, they directed their beam of light all in the same... Remember, all of this covers a specific small area. Well, that could happen, but that doesn't really sound like a beam of light coming down and sitting on the place where the Messiah was going to be born. If you notice when Saudi was talking earlier, he said the 4 are coming together, and because they're so far apart, the light lights it up like it's in the day. And the closer that those ships got together, the stronger that beam got and the more direct it. Well, what do you think is the life force of man? And I'll tell you, the guy who answered that question is the one who he's talking about. What is the life force of man? What is the life force of us? Yeshua said it. He said, you're light. So it's not really at all far-fetching to believe that there was a creative thing that went on, and that creation, that creative force came from the Spirit and created in that instant. Just a thought. You don't like it, it don't resonate with you, doesn't offend me a bit. But I don't think you'll find out in the long run that I'm wrong at all. And so there is an interesting difference in definition here, and it opens up speculation. Sadi said they were within perhaps 50 miles from Bethlehem, so they could not see the exact spot where the beam of light touched the earth. It is brighter now that they are all together. It is like most of the light is being focused, in that it is no longer scattered about, but in a precise point. It is about the brightness of a very large full moon. I get a picture, it's kind of funny, but I don't know if you guys grew up in the 60s with old Bruce Wayne, but when old Bruce Wayne, when that show started, they always had a very intense light with a big bat in the middle of it. You almost get the feeling that it's the exact same thing, only the reverse. Well, I hate to tell you guys, I don't think that it's possible, literally, for four stars to come together, control themselves, hover, and point and direct a beam. If there are four stars in the sky and they are true stars, then those stars are going to, yes, they're going to magnify their light. But by the time that light gets 100 light years to get here, that beam is going to cover an area that's so huge it wouldn't even be funny. I have heard and seen many stories of very intense, very strong, almost to the point of blinding lights that have been projected into a very precise area. I'm just saying. And so he says it is brighter now that they are all together. It is like most of the light is being focused, in that it is no longer scattered about. So it went from being to spotlight to being brought down into a beam light. Could stars do that? I'm quite sure that our Creator has the capability. But if this is an astral event that happened, four stars coming together are not going to focus their beam in one specific place. And so, but in a precise point. It is about the brightness of a very large full moon, which, as many of you know, during deer season is not good. And so I was preparing to ask him another question when I noticed that Katie's lips were moving quietly as though in prayer. I could almost see Sadi on his knees with his hands clasped towards the star, praying with an enormous heartfelt emotion. And so Dolores says, you can say it aloud. We would like to share this moment with you. And listen at the way that he responds. It speaks to something that I shared with you guys a couple of weeks ago. She says, you can say it aloud. We would like to share this moment with you. And I'm quite sure I would have liked to have heard how he prayed as well. But this was his response. No! Would I tell my soul to others? Friends, there's nothing this guy said that Yeshua didn't teach. When you pray, go into your inner closet where God, who sees you and you will close out the rest of the world. I tell my soul to Yahweh. You could change Yahweh and you could put God there and it would still be appropriate. To Saudi, God is Yahweh. And so I was quiet for a few moments in reverence, and I allowed him to continue until it looked as if he had finished. I was not rushing him to go on to another scene. This must have been such a dramatic moment. I wanted to let him savor every drop of it. And so Dolores says, has Elias also come again? Remember, we talked about reincarnation. I've been sharing this for all of us ex-Christians who still are muddled in our minds about the reality of reincarnation. For those who pay it no attention, you might ought to begin to pay it some attention. You have been deceived. And so she asked, has Elias also come again? And Saudi responds, he has been born also. It was a few months before. His father is known to, I think that's us, for he is of us. Of course, Zechariah was a high priest. Of course, he was known. He was of them. Yehukanan the immerser, who was the precursor, who was the spirit of Elijah. Thus, this prophecy had also been fulfilled. There are many references in the New Testament to this prophecy that verify that the people of the time accepted the fact that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of Elijah. Pure and simple. When the New Testament says that, that was what they really, physically, literally believed. Why? Because they had no problems with reincarnation. You only have problems with reincarnation once you became a Christian, because it's appointed now, we're giving you new rules, and the new rules say that you only get one life and you die and then you're judged. And that's all you get. And so Dolores writes, thus, this prophecy had also been fulfilled. There are many references in the New Testament to this prophecy that verify that the people of the time accepted the fact that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of Elias. In fact, Yeshua says the same. When Jesus was speaking of John to the multitude, Matthew 11, verses 10 and 14, for this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. And if we will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. When the angel was telling Zacharias that he was to have a son named John, we see in Luke 1:17, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah. Now, we thought that was, he was going before them and God had given him the same kind of spirit. Would it not be more realistic if you can even begin to wrap your mind around reincarnation, that when he now says, see, this is a reincarnation statement. He went in the spirit of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just. So what is his purpose? Is his purpose now to come so that we can all burn in hell because we're all not capable? I'll tell you, since we began on this journey, coming from a Christian background, I look back and my mind has so much of the Bible in it I look back at everyone that I have ever known, including my grandfather, who I revere as a very long time, very righteous man. And yet, I hate to tell you guys this. If Christianity is true, you better join Roman Catholics and go pay them the money so you can buy yourself out of hell, because all of us are not fit, including all of the priests that can control that now. That's why they had to make provisions for you to find a way to materially bring your money to them so that you can get out of hell. And so the purpose of his coming was to turn those who were disobedient to the Spirit to the wisdom of the just. How do you do that? You do that by teaching them, which is why Yeshua was a teacher. To make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And so Dolores says, this must be a very exciting moment. I really thank you for sharing it with us. This is something that happens once in a lifetime. To see something as beautiful as this. Saudi responds, it is more than a once in a lifetime. It is once in forever. And Dolores says that's true, and something we would have never been allowed to share if you hadn't talked to us about it. And so her closing notes, it was such a tremendous experience. I thought Katie would surely bring the remembrance back with her. And when I brought her forward to the present time and I awakened her, it was a bit sad that she had no memory of what Saudi had seen. I had been very tempted to suggest that she bring this memory forward. But we had decided in the beginning of our work together that it would be advisable to allow these experiences to stay in the past where they belong. Can anyone imagine how confusing it would be in your normal waking life to carry around the conscious memories of so many different lives? Remember, we also don't know all of the other lives that came out during this that weren't Saudi. She could probably have written 5 books off of the information she got. But we had decided in the beginning that we would leave it in the past. And so Dolores says, I think it would be extremely difficult to get on with the business of everyday life. There had been times when Katie said she would later remember fleeting glimpses of scenes, but these would be similar to the fading fragments of dreams that we all experience upon awakening from a night's sleep. So for her, that was all that remained. What an amazing story. So next week we're going to take a look at, I'm telling you, we're getting there, but soon we're going to hear his words begin to speak. And we're going to look at the Magi and the baby. And so I hope you'll come back and join me next week, next Wednesday at 7. I hope you guys, that this is vibrating with your frequency. It's quite amazing to me how much love has been bestowed on us and how much love has been robbed from us. I think back and I think that Yeshua's reason for coming to earth was to tell us about who we were and how much love it took to do that work. And so the pattern hasn't changed since before he got here. When Eliyahu spoke by the Spirit of Source, it was an act of love. When Jeremiah was hated and chased and put in prison, It was an act of love to tell those people the truth. And so I hope that you will value and see the value in where we're at and what's going on. I don't have a problem in acknowledging that I do have worries and concerns, because I know as we walk through things, there are a lot of other pieces out there, and I hate to say that already many of those pieces I've been able to recognize as not being truth. I believe Source wants us to ultimately learn the truth so we ultimately can be free. And so we come to a heart center and we say to you tonight, Namaste. Hope you have an amazing week. We will be back on Saturday, Source willing, at 2 o'clock. I hope you're blessed. Tell your friend. Do all the things. I just take it y'all are adults. You know what to do. I'm more interested in truth than I am numbers or anything else. So, shalom to each and every one of you. Peace. May the Spirit of Source rest upon you. Shalom.